John, I'm trying to, as we go through that, and what if a viewer on a regular basis, for instance, uses the internet for their direct withdrawals to pay their bills, is that something you'd recommend? Do they utilize the internet for that, or are banking bank websites safe or unsafe?
Right now, that's kind of a controversial question. I don't know that there is a clear answer as to who has the liability. I do know that there is litigation against banks where people have had spyware on their computer that has compromised their account information, and they've had large sums of money transferred out of the country, and that they've ended up holding the bag, that the banks have said that they have no liability there. Right. There's other times that the banks will put money back. It is not a instance where there's a lot of case law that says and regulatory. Like personally, I don't do it. And if you go to any of the big security conferences and you ask in the audience who does online banking, the only people who raise their hands are the ones that it's their first security conference.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So had that been a question, and that may have been a question last week at the conference here at the Holiday Inn West, that may have come up, and I suspect, as you say, only the first-time attendees were the folks raising their hands.
Yes.
That is terrible. Of course, last year you talked a lot about organized crime, and that they are really the purveyors to a great degree of much of this, but you've also just talked about some 10, 15, and teenagers that are really getting into it.
Oh, they're getting into it, for kind of the, kicks, the underground, I'm doing something that's not legal, because they can make money on it, but at the same time, organized crime is really who's behind it. You see entire software development operations developing this malware and selling it online.
Right.
For the big thing that we see is what we call botnets, where you have these automated pieces of software that go around, compromise computers, phone home, and then go out and try to compromise more computers. And it's not uncommon to see a botnet of 100,000, 200,000 computers all calling home to the same place. And the two biggest bots out there, Fatbot and Argobot, have both been written by the Russian mob.
Is that right?
Yeah, or their associates. You see websites in Russia that, for $1,500 you can go out and buy either one of these pieces of software.
Well, now, John, if someone can get access to my computer and then monitor my keystrokes to get passwords, why would anyone doing any online transactions at all?
Credit card purchases from reputable websites, I believe, is the only thing, in my personal opinion, that it's safe to do online.
So that's something that even you do?
I will admit to going out. I will admit to going out and buying books at Amazon, or buying computer equipment from some of the major commercial retailers.
Right.
But I will do that on credit cards. Never use debit cards.
Never debit cards. Only credit cards.
Only credit cards. Because
Okay.
debit cards, it's between you and the vendor. The bank has no liability on the debit cards.
Right.
So.
So using credit cards from the big Visa, MasterCard, the big suppliers there, and doing them with very large, secure sites. And
from computers that I know that are clean. And that's the big gotcha.
Okay.
One of the things that I wish the banks would push more is one-time use credit card numbers. And I've been trying to get my bank to start issuing those, and they haven't as of yet, but I know in the West Coast, I've got several colleagues out there that's the only way they do online purchases, with credit card numbers that are good for one use and one use only.
Okay.
So if somebody even captures it, they can't make additional purchases.
Last year you highlighted a website, I believe it was SANS, S-A-N-S.org, SANS.org,
yes,
which had a white paper, some other great information about if I've had a computer for more than a year, it's been set up, but the steps to go through, or was that white paper principally for folks buying a new computer?
Well, for buying a new computer, because once you have a computer and it's been out on the internet, I wouldn't trust it as far as I could kick it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, I have yet to see a home user's computer that wasn't as infested as mosquitoes in a swamp.
That is terrible, John. I cringe thinking about.
Yeah.
You mean it's even so? It's not going to be protected even if I'm just going to high-profile sites, Amazon, for instance, using my credit card.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that somebody hasn't figured out some way getting in at Amazon. No one has an absolute guarantee that any site is secure. I've done some work for a couple of the big e-tailers that have actually had their websites hacked. You don't see about it in the news, but it happens.
Cully Carson was with us yesterday and highlighted that there is South Carolina was the 42nd state, I believe, just recently, the first of the month, that has put a notification, a law in play that the governor had just signed off on, I think, April 2nd. And so a lot of push there, but there's still some states clearly that don't have the notification requirements, and some big companies that, as you say, may not have to do that.
Yes. And I mean, it's just the paper that you're referring to was called Windows XP Surviving the First Day. And if you go out to SANS.org and click on Reading Room and search for the paper, it's Windows XP Surviving the First Day. Tells you that, okay, you bring a computer home from the store, or you've just wiped out your Windows install and you want to reinstall. How do I install it, and how do I get the patches and do so safely without the computer getting compromised? That is a very, very good paper to go get. And it's a mess, and we're almost fighting a losing battle. And the biggest problem is that we're being outspent and outgunned. Organized crime is spending more money on R&D, according to a lot of reports, than the entire rest of the world is spending on security defense.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
John, I think I've seen, whether I'm on an office computer or possibly at a home computer, and I've seen the computer virtually shuts down and says we've hit a fatal error. Is that an example of something that's occurring? Either it's hitting your, or is that just a computer-related issue?
Well, it can be a computer-related issue, and prior to Windows XP, I would tend to more blame it on the computer than anything. But anymore, if you have a computer crash like that, it is most likely due to the spyware and the other stuff that's on your computer. I know a lot of people complain that the more they use the computer, the slower it gets. Well, that is a number one symptom that they have all sorts of spyware and other junk on their computer, because all this stuff is sitting there, monitoring everything they're doing, sucking up all the resources, and you have no time left for what the user wants to do, because it's spending all of its time spying on everything the user's doing.
That is incredible, John. I can't even fathom. You must have friends and others who just no longer go online, who no longer take advantage of their computer, even computer experts.
There's a few people that are getting close to that, but I know there's anecdotal evidence of people just saying that I'm absolutely fed up with having to take my computer in at the shop every 6 months and getting told that the reason it's not working right, it's all my fault. And
Right. Yeah. We just got a couple of minutes. Are there some other things that worry you, John, some things that you're particularly vigilant about on behalf of your clients or in your home life that really, I know last year you talked about a number of things that relates to Wi-Fi, WiMAX,
yeah,
Bluetooth.
Anything wireless is just incredibly insecure, and the people walking around with Bluetooth-enabled cell phones, most of them don't have any idea what they're doing in terms of risk. It's trivial with the majority of the Bluetooth-enabled cell phones for somebody to go out and steal your phone book, all your messages and email, everything you got stored on your cell phone can be grabbed and you not have a clue. They can eavesdrop on your conversations and not even be aware there's a problem.
Virtually, that's easy to get equipment so that here in the lobby, if someone was sitting here at last week's computer security conference, for instance, someone was sitting here with the Bluetooth and checking emails, that someone could be sitting right next to them looking at their email.
Exactly. And Bluetooth, I was at a conference about a year ago up in the D.C. area, where they had put some little Bluetooth-enabled notebooks around the conference to spy on people, and they were able to show everybody that had a Bluetooth-enabled cell phone where they walked, when they got phone calls, when they got text messages, and everything. And they even were able to point out the people that didn't have their cell phones on silence and got calls in the middle of presentations.
No, you are kidding, John.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very simple to do. I mean, you can be spied on so easily with Bluetooth and wireless, you know, the Wi-Fi. If you're not going to spend $10,000 or more to lock down a wireless network, you have no business using it, particularly in a business environment.
You say if someone's not going to spend at least $10,000 or more to lock it down, you shouldn't be using a network?
You shouldn't be using wireless networks, because you have a new wireless security standard called Enterprise WPA2, which is a business class. It's very complicated to set up and administer, and that is the only one that has any chance of security.
Right.
That if you're using the standard, wireless access point that you get, off the shelf from any of the big box retailers, you bring it in, sit down. Anybody in your neighborhood can sit there and use your internet connection, and they can sit there and connect to your computer and steal stuff off your computer. And somebody can be sitting out in the parking lot of your apartment complex and do it. And the WEP can be broken, encryption, which the instructions tell you to set up. It can be broken in under 3 minutes. And if you don't really know what you're doing and you try to set up the WPA encryption, you can break it in probably less time than that.
John, that is incredible. I think we're running out of time.
Sure.
As we highlight that aspect of clearly what folks can do, normal people can do to protect themselves, I think you've highlighted there's a lot that can be done, but SANS.org is a very important place to go. Any other websites that you'd recommend to folks to try to protect themselves?
The various vendors, my personal preference for the antivirus products for a home user would be Greaseoff, more than the wider used McAfee and Symantec, only because they are one of the fastest at putting out the new signatures. And when you're getting a dozen pieces of new malware an hour being detected, that getting new updates once a day or once every other day or once a week just doesn't cut it.
Just isn't enough. John, thanks so much for being with us this morning. I'm sorry we've run out of time. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Jon Kibler of ASET, one of the featured speakers of last week's conference, coming up next. If you're not concerned about your time on the internet or on the computer any day after sitting here the last 30 minutes, then you've got a problem. If you want to know more, want to go back over some of the points John was highlighting, go to carolinapeople.com this Friday afternoon. Go online. You can pause his interview throughout and highlight some of those critical aspects that he's bringing to the forefront every day. Jon Kibler, thanks so much for being with us.